Sorry. Victoria Whitman's voice cut through the clink of champagne glasses like a thin blade. I don't see your name on the guest list. The woman, in the simple black dress, looked up. The crystal chandelier shattered into 1,000 shards of light against the marble floor. Around them, Manhattan's elite shifted their shoulders slightly, phones discreetly raised, lenses glinting behind gold-trimmed frames. "Perhaps you should check again," Kesha Walker said softly, her hand resting lightly on the worn edge of a black clutch. Her voice was so calm it made the air suddenly dip in temperature. "No mistake," Catherine Whitman strode to her daughter's side, white pearls like lines of script along her collarbone. The help should know their place. Mark Whitman, Jr. let out a sharp nasal laugh, raising his phone. "Dad, call security. This is gold content." James Whitman, Sr. gave the slightest nod. The luxury watch on his wrist caught the light. The family closed ranks into a half circle, as if setting up a tribunal in the middle of the Whitman Foundation charity gala. Kesha glanced at the scratched steel of her watch. 8:47 p.m. She wondered how many times people had looked right through her, like glass, without seeing the power a worker could still hold. The Meridian Club penthouse gleamed like an exhibit of old money. Crystal chandeliers, paneled walls, marble floors polished to reflect even the most skeptical glances. Tonight, they were about to announce a major education partnership, something the media would praise as a legacy milestone. Two security guards in black suits approached, earpieces crackling. "Ma'am, may we see your invitation?" Kesha opened her clutch and drew out a cream-colored embossed card. The crowd widened, then closed in again like a whirlpool. Someone whispered, "Karen alert!" Another snickered. In the far corner, a live stream on Instagram jumped from 400 to 847 viewers in seconds. Comments poured in. "Again? If this goes south, it's a PR disaster." The guard inspected the card, hesitating. "Looks valid." "Looks?" Catherine chuckled, her laugh thin as cracking glass. James Sr. adjusted his bow tie. Sometimes invitations get misplaced or copied. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. "Let's take this somewhere private," the second guard murmured, nodding toward the service elevator. "Private?" Kesha's tone stayed even, but something sharp at the edges made the guard falter. Victoria tilted her chin toward the main elevator. "That one's for guests." "You understand." The room seemed to inhale as one. In front of 200 people, they had just pointed her to the service lift, a cut both clean and deep. Viewers on the live stream, 15,000. The hashtag number sign, Whitman Gala, began flickering on New York's trending map. But inside this marble bubble, the Whitmans still acted as though they were rehearsing behind closed doors. A server with a champagne tray brushed her elbow, and Kesha steadied herself. Her clutch slipped slightly. A business card fell to the floor. A guard picked it up and read aloud, "Washington Capital Management." "Never heard of it," Victoria smirked. "Probably some small firm trying to mingle up." On screen, comments exploded. "WCM AUM tilde 50 billion, Reddit lady." "Google it." That 8:47 felt like destiny, flashing among the scrolling text. "Ma'am, please step aside," the guard repeated. Kesha looked from the service elevator to the main one. She let the silence stretch for a few seconds, long enough for the cameras to catch every muscle in her face. Her phone buzzed, 3 missed calls. Marcus Reed, CIOWCM, Labor Trust Channel, Meridian Industrial Board. She smiled faintly. "I'll wait for the main elevator," she said, turning to face the family. "And while I wait, I have a few calls to make." "Which department are you from?" Catherine squinted. Laundry? Housekeeping? Night cleaning shift, Kesha replied evenly, without an ounce of defensiveness. And trustee of the Urban Service Workers Pension Fund. Tonight I'm here as a guest of Meridian. A few eyes widened. Power didn't always come in a starched collar. Sometimes it came from the collective behind calloused hands, still smelling faintly of chlorine. 13 minutes to announcement. A coordinator's voice hissed through a headset somewhere. What exactly are you implying? James Sr. looked impatient. Just saving you some time, Kesha said, her voice soft but dropping like lead. She dialed. 1 ring, 2. Marcus, it's Kesha. The whole room caught fragments of her words, thanks to the perfect marble crystal acoustics. I know you're busy prepping, but we need to talk about the Meridian partnership. James Sr.'s expression collapsed slightly. Mark Jr. lowered his phone, the camera suddenly useless. Victoria's grip on her glass tightened until it cracked. In the corner, Bloomberg reporter David Kim had already flipped open his laptop the moment he saw Washington Capitol on the card. He smelled a major story. Yes, Marcus, there's a complication with tonight's announcement, Kesha said, each word striking like a hammer on crystal. Are you threatening us? Victoria's laugh was dry. Number I'm working. Kesha set her phone down for a moment, meeting James Sr.'s eyes. Time is precious, especially when millions are ticking down by the minute. Her phone buzzed again. A text from the Labor Trust channel. Committee ready, just say the word. A missed call from the Meridian Industrial Board popped up like an exclamation point. Who are you to weigh in on this? Catherine's lips pursed. I'm the woman who mops the floors in this building, Kesha said, her gaze steady. And I represent the pension capital of hundreds of thousands like me. Capital managed by WCM and allied funds. You're not the only ones who own this room. Livestream, 23,000, 31,000. Comments cascaded, workers' capital. Reputation clause incoming. This is 10 minutes, the PA system murmured. Kesha inhaled, the faint chlorine at her fingernails mingling with the cloud of expensive perfume around her. All right, she whispered to herself. Let's begin. She lifted the phone again, pivoted toward the main elevator. The steel doors were shut tight, like the eyelids of an unwilling witness. And the room, with all its crystal and marble, suddenly felt like an operating theater, where every word would be a scalpel's cut. 10 minutes left. The coordinator's voice trembled like a taut string. Ma'am, maybe you should lower your voice, one of the security guards said, trying to tug the frayed cord of order back into place. Kesha tilted her head. I'm speaking normally. The acoustics here are just excellent. The words were light but precise, slicing the air like a scalpel grazing skin. James Sr. adjusted his cufflinks, sweat beating at his temples. We're wasting precious time. Time is precious, Kesha echoed, like holding up a mirror. Especially when reputation is also an asset with a valuation. She lifted her phone. Marcus, connect me with legal. This is an on-the-record directive from a trustee. In the corner, David Kim changed the headline draft. Whitman, Gala spirals into crisis. Workers' capital steps in. Please confirm. The good faith clause in the Meridian contract, Section 47(2)(c, allows termination if the partner causes reputational damage, correct? Kesha asked, eyes never leaving the Whitman family. Confirmed, a male voice replied on the line, metallic, cold. Kesha caught her own reflection in the polished marble, a black woman in a simple black dress, hands still cracked from cleaning chemicals but a voice anchoring the entire room. "Good," she said. "Execute the meridian withdrawal immediately." The next sound was a champagne glass hitting the floor. Victoria flinched. "Withdrawal? What does that mean, Dad?" But she already knew. It was the hiss of a billion-dollar deal deflating. Kesha went on, slow and clear, like dictating a verdict. "Yes, $1.2 billion over 3 years. Cancel it. Execute now. Termination fees, the fund will cover them. That's the price of dignity. Live stream, 45,000, 78,000. Words flashing. Queen. Power move. Don't mess with janitors. Workers own Wall Street, too." "That's enough," James Sr. snapped, then, remembering the cameras, lowered his voice. "Ms. Walker, there must be some misunderstanding. This is a charity event. You started it by directing a valid guest to the service elevator," Kesha said, not raising her voice, but each word gaining a coat of lead. "And you're ending it by forcing me to protect my colleagues' pension capital from reputational risk linked to your family." "Who are you to turn things around like this?" Catherine choked out. A woman's voice rose from the guest seats. "Allow me." Dr. Liz Carter stepped forward, her wool coat casting a soft shadow. "This is Kesha Walker, Meridian's night shift janitor and a trustee representing the Urban Service Workers Pension Fund. Their fund entrusts capital to Washington Capital Management, WCM, an asset manager with roughly $50 billion under management. They hold shareholder rights and a voice in strategic partnerships." A ripple passed through the room. Several executives leaned back, as though seeing an entirely different power map hanging on the wall. Pension capital, patient capital, quiet but heavy-handed. Mark Jr.'s fingers shook as he Googled, his screen spitting out Forbes profiles and AUM filings. His face drained pale. The clip of him mocking the help was now being shared at 1,000 reposts per minute. 7 minutes, the coordinator's voice cracked like a fissure in the wall. Kesha drew a thick cream-colored document from her clutch, letterhead reading Washington Capital, Equity Stewardship, and placed it on the rim of a champagne tray like a thin blade. "I like facts," she said. "For example, last quarter, Whitman Industries reported revenue of $847 million, correct?" David Kim's head lifted, the flicker in his journalist's eyes signaling recognition. Accurate to the last dollar. The numbers 8-4-7 threaded back into the room like a refrain. "Where did you get that figure?" James Sr. growled, more demand than question. "SEC filings," Kesha replied. "Anyone can read them, if they care to." A velvet-thick silence settled on shoulders all around. Somewhere, the violins kept playing, but the melody had turned into courtroom background music. "What do you want?" Victoria burst out. "Money? An apology? Let me take you in back. We can settle this privately." "There's no private anymore," Kesha said, glancing at the raised phones. 100,000 people are witnessing this public lesson. The only thing I want is a standard. Respect for dignity and accountability for the capital workers sweated to earn. James Sr. tried another tack. 23,000 jobs. You'd jeopardize them over a moment of ego. "This isn't ego," Kesha said, her tone lowering, the blade's tip finding cartilage. "This is risk management. Meridian's $1.2 billion over 3 years is 142% of your quarterly revenue. If a partner is tied to a discrimination scandal, your cost of capital spikes, valuation shrinks, and employees will be the first casualties. I pull the brake now so they won't pay the price later." Live stream, 98,000. A pinned comment stood out. When the janitor knows the law better than the CEO. Dr. Carter looked at Kesha, the smile at her lips not applause but professional respect. A clean cut, no wasted stroke. 5 minutes. The coordinator's voice was almost pleading now. Kesha glanced at the main elevator, the steel doors still shut. She raised the phone. Marcus, confirm the order. Send the notice of termination under 47-2C to Meridian. I'll call back in 10 to finalize fees and comms. Yes, correct, on the record. She hung up and slid the phone into her clutch. The room compressed, as if all the air had been drawn from a giant balloon. Victoria gripped her father's arm. Dad, do something. Call Richard, the lawyer. Call the board. James Sr. opened his mouth, then closed it. He had just realized something. There was no call fast enough to stop the lever Kesha had placed on the fulcrum. Kesha turned to the guards, her voice softening. You didn't do anything wrong, but tonight the orders aren't coming from them. They're coming from people like me, night shift workers, through our capital. The two large men exchanged a glance. Something in her words loosened their shoulders, like seeing a new order of things. Quiet, but solid. In the corner, David Kim hit publish on his first piece. Whitman, crisis erupts at Gala, pension fund triggers, reputation clause, billion-dollar deal fractures. Guests' phones buzzed like hail. One sponsor whispered, they should apologize right now. Another replied, it's beyond apologies. This is governance. 3 minutes! The sound snapped across the room like a whip. Kesha closed her clutch and stood tall. Chandelier light ran down the edge of her scratched steel watch. She didn't need to raise her voice or add another threat. The order had been given. The money would speak the rest. A dry ting rang out. The main elevator doors slid open. No one moved. The entire room seemed to funnel toward the groove between the two steel panels. Kesha took one short step, then paused, turning halfway back. We're not done. The doors slid shut, reflecting Victoria's pale face, Mark Jr.'s blank stare, Catherine's clenched pearls, and James Sr., aged 2 decades. Somewhere, the violin's final note died away. All that remained was the invisible countdown to the announcement, and everyone knew there would be nothing left to announce. Monday morning. The Whitman Industries boardroom was sealed tight, the scent of mahogany mingling with fresh coffee. Cream-colored binders lined the table, the most prominent a printed Schedule 13D marked in yellow. Investor Group coordinated by WCM, 34.7% interest. At the head of the table, James Whitman Sr. sat upright, family attorney Richard Stein at his side. Victoria kept herself hidden from the cameras behind frosted glass. Mark Jr. concealed the hand he was biting his nails with beneath the edge of the table. Across from them, Kesha Walker entered with 2 attorneys and a restructuring specialist. No evening gown, no jewelry, just a scratched steel watch and a small dog-eared notebook. We have quorum, said Harrison Pierce, independent board member, acting chair, his voice dry as paper. Reason for emergency session. Petition from a shareholder group over 10% per the bylaws. Richard raised a hand. Motion to delay 48 hours given the weekend's PR damage. No delay, Kesha cut in. Reputational risk doesn't wait for us. The air shifted voltage. Harrison read the first agenda item. Suspend CEO Victoria Whitman pending an independent investigation into corporate culture and governance. Kesha's lawyer flipped open the bylaws. Section 7.4, Board may suspend when governance crisis threatens shareholder value. Votes clicked in on the screen. Motion carried. Victoria exhaled tightly, eyes down. There was no speech that could save her now. Second item, remove COO Mark Whitman Jr. for conduct, contrary to leadership standards and posing reputational risk. A short pause, then the vote lights turned green. Passed unanimously. Mark gripped the arms of his chair, face drained. For the first time, he understood a phone could be a shovel for his own career's grave. Third item, the dignity protocol. Kesha slid forward a slim packet, speaking evenly. 4 pillars, measurable, not slogans. 1. Training and standards. 40-hour inclusive leadership course, Module 8-4-7. 8 dialogue principles, 4 review milestones, 7 transparency metrics. 2. Data transparency. Public quarterly dashboard, KPIs tied to management bonuses and penalties. 3. Whistleblower protection. Anonymous channels, independent investigations, 0 retaliation. 4. Community investment. $50 million fund for minority-owned businesses. Seeded by WCM, matched by Whitman over 3 years. Richard interjected. Funding source? The restructuring specialist clicked to a slide. Cut PR waste, renegotiate logistics, change procurement model, and most critically, diverse supplier alliance projected to reduce OPEX by 6 to 8%. Harrison scanned the table. Carried. Fourth item, public apology from Chairman James Sr. before noon the next day, per a transparency template. Accept responsibility, outline corrective action, set verification timeline. James frowned. An apology won't lift the stock price. No, Kesha replied, but it unlocks trust, something the market values above any fine words. The vote tally lit up. Carried. Final item, Harrison said, appointing interim CEO. The door opened, and Dr. Patricia Williams entered. Dark hair streaked with silver, gaze steady as a set screw. I'm here to listen and to act, she said, her voice clear without a mic. My 30 to 60 to 90 plan. First, a listening tour across all plants, warehouses, service centers. Every stop includes frontline worker representation. Audit rewards and discipline systems, and the Friends of Friends culture. Standardized diverse hiring panels. Sign Minority Supplier Alliance to replace Meridian. Target 8% OPEX reduction in the fiscal year. Community impact reports published alongside financials. A short vote round. Carried. Outside the frosted glass, reporters went still. A signal not from flowery statements but from a chain of decisions with sharp teeth. Now, the Meridian matter, Kesha said. Her lawyer slid an envelope across the table. Termination notice under the reputational clause. Sent over the weekend. Confirmed, received by the partner that morning. The CFO voiced concern over the revenue gap. Kesha didn't dodge. We're replacing a flashy contract with a diversified architecture. Reduced operational risk, reduced cost, real value, don't burn, build. The meeting closed. Chairs scraped like bedsheets being pulled taut in an operating room after surgery. Kesha rose, pausing at the doorway. Tonight, dignity dialogues open at the marble penthouse. Tortakam. No podium, no chairperson. Everyone present is an owner. Harrison nodded. Record it in the minutes. 8:47. James Sr. looked down at his hands. 2 days ago, they had ordered a woman out of the main elevator. Today, they pressed approve on a corporate surgery she had outlined herself. Kesha headed straight to the parking garage, steps sure as someone who knew every turn in the building. She unlocked her phone. A text from Rosa popped up. We're busy tonight, make sure you eat first. She smiled. True power doesn't change shifts. It only changes how the system treats the people who work them. At the start of the trading week, WMI's price line plunged like a pair of shears slicing through a chart. Rumors, doubts, a whole indictment of numbers that hadn't yet told their story. By late morning, the drop hit a low of around 20%. Market commentary called it a harsh wake-up call. On the Ohio plant floor, shift workers glanced at each other. Are our hours getting cut? In the Texas warehouse, a shift supervisor opened an email labeled Dignity Protocol with a link to the pilot dashboard. 5 starter metrics flashing red. Workplace accidents, training hours, internal promotion rate, diverse supplier rate, employee satisfaction. The good and the bad go on the board, Dr. Patricia wrote in a short note. If there's more bad, we start cleaning it up. In a makeshift studio at headquarters, James Sr. stood before the camera. The opening lines were cut down again and again until only the simplest remained. On Saturday night, my family was wrong. We humiliated a legitimate guest. No excuses. I apologize. And I take responsibility through the following actions. The video went live that afternoon. Reactions split down the middle like 2 banks of a canal, half skeptical, half willing to wait and see the repair map. Messages poured into the CFO's phone, an ESG fund in Boston, asking for the 90-day plan and KPI triggers for bonuses penalties. A former charity sponsor announcing they'd withdraw support because they don't like being woke. Patricia replied curtly, "You have the right to walk. We have the obligation to reduce risk and increase efficiency. That's governance, not a slogan." Harrison jotted a line in his notebook. "Don't chase the noise, hold the strategy." In Meridian's basement, Rosa pushed her chemical cart, scanning the labels. Dilution ratios, hazard symbols, SDS sheets no one used to bother reading. Victoria walked in, still clumsy in her new gloves. "Can you teach me to read these like you promised?" Kesha nodded, pointing one by one. "Never mix chlorine with ammonia. Dilute more for marble than for tile. Always wear goggles. And remember, end your shift as healthy as you started it." Her first lesson carried no course credit but took effect immediately. Hours later, Darlene sent a photo of an industrial dryer now fitted with a vibration pad, her hands already less bruised. That evening, the Dignity Dialogues opened at the marble penthouse. No velvet ropes, no cocktails. Chairs formed a circle. In the center, a blank paper board. Derek, the security guard, began. Before, "Use that door" came out of my mouth like a reflex. Saturday night, I almost said it, and swallowed it. From now on, I want to check my reflex before it becomes a cost of capital risk. The room laughed. This time, the laughter had knowledge at its back, not mockery. A shift supervisor named Cole worried the edge of his notebook. This morning, I said, night shifts slower because, well, there are reasons. I'm sorry, I'm signing up for the 8-4-7 course now. Miguel, the night shift cook, followed, telling how he'd once proposed changing produce suppliers to reduce spoilage, but his email sank to the bottom for months. Patricia nodded. Be in the kitchen with me tomorrow morning. We'll reopen the RFP process. We don't buy stories. We buy KP as, In the back row, Mark Jr. listened in silence, eyes avoiding the cameras. When it was his turn, he said quietly, My LinkedIn profile just got tagged with leadership rehabilitation. I'll take it. Sign me up for 8-4-7 the morning after tomorrow. Kesha looked him in the eye. No one's taking that tag off for you. Do the work, and the data will. A draft of the dashboard appeared on the wall screen. Training hours sat embarrassingly low. Diverse supplier rate hovered near 0. Victoria raised her hand. I'm committing to the full 40 hours of training and a psych evaluation. If I fail, I won't return. The promise fell onto the marble floor, not echoing, but not vanishing either. Kesha replied slowly, "We don't need loud promises. We need a schedule and proof." Late that night, a message from David Kim popped up. His new article quoting what Kesha had told an investor, "If woke means seeing the risk in how you treat people, then yes, I'm woke, and when I'm awake, I do the math better." The line spread through the financial community, not because it was poetic, but because it hinted at a formula: respect, safety, efficiency, lower costs, fatter margins. On her way out, Kesha pushed the floor scrubber down a hallway no longer split into guest and staff lanes. Derek held the elevator door without a word. The small gesture lightened the air more than any speech could. As the doors closed, Kesha saw her reflection broken across the marble. No crown, no title plaque, just rubber gloves and a thick calendar of listening tours. She knew the market could still jolt, short sellers could still spread rumors. But the touchpoints inside the organization had shifted. Reflex phrases were being held back. Bottomed emails were being pulled to the surface. Data was being put on the wall. And when the small things shift course, the big ship will follow. Before switching off the lights, Kesha stuck a note to the board. Dignity is not a cost. It's the prerequisite for every other calculation to hold true. Then she locked the chemical cabinet, shut down the machine, and walked toward the main elevator. The doors already open, as if the building had finally learned how to greet a person by the entrance they deserve. A gray morning in Ohio, the metal stamping plant at Whitman Industries glowed under yellow lights, the press machines breathing like an old beast that hadn't yet had its lungs replaced. Dr. Patricia Williams wore a hard hat, walking alongside Kesha Walker and Harrison Pierce. The smell of oil mixed with hot metal and the faint scent of fresh rubber gloves pulled from the box. Supervisor Cole gestured toward a row of machines. Night shifts usually slower, because, their reasons. There hit the concrete floor with a dull thud. Kesha glanced at him. No frown, no public call-out, just a small nod toward the dignity protocol tucked under her arm. We'll walk through workplace language in a bit. Press number 847 stood silent, as if turning its ear to listen. Samir tugged on his gloves, pointing to the safety latch. "It sticks." "Takes 3 presses to catch. I've reported it." Darlene, from the laundry unit, showed a photo of her bruised hand. "Dryer shakes like a truck. I've emailed." Patricia set her notebook on the conveyor edge, offering no empty promises. "Install the vibration pad now. Maintenance to check number 847 sensor today. Report to the board before shift end." Harrison tapped the crooked OSHA poster. If it's just for photo ops, no need. If it's to live by, straighten it now. The listening tour opened with a magnetic whiteboard split into 3 columns: issue, impact, action within 72 hours. Kesha pinned the first slip. Press number 847, safety latch stuck, hand injury risk, 20-minute stoppage per shift. Shut down 2 hours to replace sensor, add maintenance shift, sign-off witnessed by worker rep. Second slip, industrial dryer, severe vibration, repeat injuries, productivity loss, add vibration pad, review base mount, submit replacement quote. Each note connected to a responsible party column. This time, no row ended with under review. Mid-morning, a screenshot from the internal Slack hit Harrison's phone. "Let the janitor run the company. Great. Next week, maybe she'll sign off CapEx with a broom." The air tightened. Kesha didn't bite back. She flipped to the No Retaliation, transparent discipline page of the Dignity Protocol. We address behavior, not humiliate people. Mandatory training and 90-day monitoring. Repeat offense, disciplinary action. This is how an organization speaks through process, not anger. In Texas, the cross-dock warehouse buzzed like a port. Derek, in from New York, walked the forklift lanes with the inspection team. Faded yellow lines, warning signs too high, blind corners. A near miss showed up on the security video. Patricia nodded. Repaint travel lanes, lower signs to eye level, add convex mirrors. Anyone who reconfigures without a risk review loses their quarterly bonus. Kesha stood with Miguel, the night shift cook invited to weigh in on the cold chain. Lettuce gets bruised in the last leg. Waste is up. The note went straight into procurement. Produce, RFP, scored on freshness waste, OTIF. By day's end, the company-wide screen lit up with dashboard V0.1. The first 5 metrics weren't pretty. Workplace accidents not down. Training hours scraping the floor. Internal promotion rate with glaring gaps. Diverse supplier rate near 0. Employee satisfaction hesitant. Patricia spoke bluntly. Transparency means both the good and the bad go on the board. If there's a lot of bad, we start cleaning it up. Kesha added a line at the bottom. KP is tied to management bonuses. Miss Target, bonus 0, safety decline, bonus negative. Silence, then nods. At the RFP meeting for the Minority Supplier Alliance, 3 SMBs presented in turn. Luna Logistics, Latina-owned, proposed a milk run, multi-hub model to keep JIT intact. ArborWorks, Black-owned, offered an optimal cut plan to reduce scrap by 10 to 12%. Redbird Components, Native-owned, pitched localized component cluster cutting lead time by over 2 weeks. Kesha tapped her pen. We don't buy stories, we buy KPIs. Show me OTIF greater than or equal to 98%, scrap minus 10%, lead time minus 12 to 16 days, and a pullout clause if you drop below standard. A leak from a former charity donor criticized, "Don't bring politics into business." Patricia answered like hitting a switch. We're doing risk management and efficiency optimization. Dignity here isn't a moral sermon. It's an EPS component, Harrison scribbled. Don't chase noise, hold strategy. The CFO took a call from a Boston ESG fund. Send the 90-day plan and KPI thresholds. If it's on track, we may increase our weight. For the first time since the storm broke, if carried the scent of opportunity, not threat. That evening, Dignity Dialogue number 2 reconvened at the Marble Penthouse. No cocktails, no velvet ropes, just a circle of chairs and a water jug. Derek told the story of the use that door reflex he swallowed. The room laughed, but everyone understood why it mattered. A reflex caught in time can save more than a PR contract. Cole stood, awkward. This morning, I said, night shift's slow because, I'm sorry, I'm enrolling in Module 8-4-7 first. Victoria took notes by hand, no assistant. Mark Jr. arrived late, sitting low, asking for a seat in the class. Kesha didn't hand out medals or applause. She simply said, promise less, do more. The data will give you the credit. On the wall screen, dashboard V0.1 blinked. Small green bars beginning to rise. Darlene sent a photo of her hand neatly bandaged, caption, dryer's steadier. Samir reported, number 847 sensor replaced. No more triple presses. Tiny wins, but in a company, trajectories often start from the slightest tilt of a plane. Late at night, Kesha pushed her cleaning cart down a corridor heavy with floor cleaner scent. Rosa winked. You on the road tomorrow? Kesha smiled. Texas, then Georgia, then back here. Don't skip dinner, Rosa reminded, slipping a box of tamales into her hand. Kesha glanced at her scratched steel watch. Not a thing to show off, but a reminder of every night shift she'd lived to get here. The quiet uprising, of reflexes caught in time, KPIs pinned to walls, machines padded to stop the shake, was happening without fanfare. And that is exactly how big ships start to turn. The good news came first. The LOI between Whitman and the Minority Supplier Consortium was signed in principle. The three logos, Luna Logistics, Arbor Works, Redbird Components, stood side by side at the top of the document like three perfectly fitting puzzle pieces. The terms were modern and unambiguous. A 3-year volume commitment, tiered discounts, OPEX reduction targets of 6 to 8%, and KPIs tied to penalties and bonuses. OTIF greater than or equal to 98%, scrap minus 10%, lead time 12 to 16 days. Kesha's attorney scribbled in the margin, race neutral, outcome conscious, opens fair competition, scores by performance, avoids legal traps. The bad news followed fast. An anonymous report hit social media, calling the dashboard a PR stunt, mocking woke capital manipulation, and recommending a short. The price chart shook violently, like a guitar string snapped hard. Internal chat rooms lit up. Town hall? Investors want to hear directly. Patricia decided one all-company town hall, then an investor call that same evening. Kesha added unfiltered Q&A. The town hall opened with a map pinned with red tacks marking the places the team had visited. Patricia sketched the 30 to 60 to 90-day framework, hitting straight at the pain points: safety, respect, efficiency. 3 gears that only turn smoothly when they mesh. Kesha stepped forward, removed her coat to reveal a plain work outfit and her old steel watch. I'm not asking anyone to take my word for it. I'm inviting you to look at the data and ask questions. If by version 0.3 the dashboard hasn't moved, you have every right to demand I step down from my capital oversight role. The chat feed filled with a mix of thumbs up and skepticism, both necessary for an honest recovery. That night's investor call was packed, like a conference room in peak season. The CFO led with the financial model. We lost Meridian, but the consortium will backfill capacity on a 2-quarter ramp. Base case, OPEX minus 6.2%, optimal case minus 8.1%, EPS impact plus 4 to 6% once steady. Patricia spoke about the listening tour. Every stop has a 72-hour action matrix. Safety and productivity move together, not in opposition. Harrison covered oversight. KP is tied to management incentives and penalties, with a public reporting schedule. The sharpest question came early. Why is a janitor running billion-dollar decisions? Kesha looked straight into the camera, voice as clean as a single precise cut. Because that janitor is a trustee representing the pension capital of hundreds of thousands of workers, capital that sustains part of this company. I don't run it with a broom. I run it with contract clauses, risk governance, and KPIs. Another analyst asked, is the dashboard just PR? No, it hardwires management's bonuses and penalties. If training hours don't meet thresholds, bonus equals 0. If workplace accidents don't decline, bonus goes negative, deducted from next year. We don't hang posters, we hang leadership careers on the metric board. The most skeptical voice dropped woke capitalism like bait. Are you more woke than economic? Kesha paused half a beat, then nodded. If woke means seeing the risk in how you treat people, yes, I'm woke. And when I'm awake, I do the math better. Our math, negative 8% OPEX plus 4 to 6% EPS in 2 quarters. No magic, just operations. Behind the scenes, the Consortium team wasn't waiting for market sympathy. Luna Logistics shot a video of its milk run route, showing every stop, every buffer to protect the cold chain. ArborWorks shared its shift-by-shift scrap control chart, close-ups of optimized cut trays. Redbird posted the installation schedule for its new kitting line, barcode tags visible, scan cycle at each handoff. David Kim scooped the evidence for his next analysis. From slogans to KPIs, Whitman's new partners bring data to light. The price swings didn't vanish, but the chart stopped jerking, like a body sweating out the fever. Inside, the $50 million fund launched its first round, an open call for minority-owned businesses with a short-form application scored on capacity plus job impact. Miguel submitted a produce chain proposal in partnership with a local co-op. Its KPIs were waste reduction and OTIF improvement. Not pretty words. Victoria finished her first modules of 8-4-7, filling 2 full pages with notes on touchpoints that cause invisible harm in company rituals. She asked to join the next factory stop on the listening tour, not for a photo op, but to hear directly from the environment she once knew only through reports. Mark Jr. approached Kesha after hours, haltingly offering to shift half his trust fund into the $50 million fund. "Don't call it atonement, call it investment," Kesha replied. "But remember, long-term commitment. A check won't fix culture." That night, Kesha returned to the marble penthouse with the floor scrubber. Victoria was waiting, safety glasses on, SDS sheet folded at the corners in her hand. "Today, I learned the right dilution ratio," she said, half joking. "Good," Kesha replied, handing her another cleaning bottle. "Tomorrow, come to the warehouse with me. I'll show you a forklift's blind spot. Those things aren't in any case study." On the table, dashboard V0.1 still glowed. A single green bar just emerging. Small enough to overlook, but anyone who works with numbers knows. A trend line often starts as a hairline scratch on the surface. She stopped the machine, the marble mirrors breaking her reflection into fragments. None bore a crown. All bore the scuffs of a steel watch worn through countless night shifts. The anonymous report outside might still stir headwinds, but inside, process had shifted, promises were bound to KPIs, and people looked at each other half a beat differently. Kesha pushed the cart forward, murmuring as if inscribing a note beneath the dashboard. "Dignity is strategy. Workers are shareholders, and a company that does the math better will survive any noise." A few weeks later, what had once been a media storm had thinned into a light drizzle, revealing a work site in motion. Machines with their covers off, processes with their bolts loosened. People invited to speak plainly. The listening tour kept moving without fanfare. At each stop, the whiteboard marked issue, impact. 72-hour action filled up, then emptied as the action boxes were crossed out. In Ohio, Samir pointed to the press with the new sensor. "Now, it works on the first press." The words were casual, but the laugh that burst from those around him sounded like pressure finally released from a chest wound. Darlene held up her neatly bandaged hand. "Dryer shakes a lot less now." On the V0.1 dashboard, the workplace accidents and employee satisfaction bars inched upward, like a pencil touching paper for the first stroke. In Texas, Luna Logistics delivered its first produce run under the milk run model. Miguel opened the crate, squeezed the head of cabbage, and heard the crisp snap, as fresh as a chuckle just told. "Waste is clearly down," he messaged in the RFP group. HarborWorks sent a shift-by-shift scrap chart, once jagged like a child's handwriting, now starting to slope steadily downward. Redbird Components erected its new kitting frame, barcodes tagged at every station. A once skeptical floor manager watched for a while before saying, "If they can hold OTIF like this for 3 months, I'm ready to move another line." The dignity protocol was bleeding into daily life. Miguel's buried email from last year was now pinned to the top of the queue. Use that door had disappeared from internal guides, replaced with guide guests through the most convenient route. Warehouse safety rules were rewritten and placed at eye level instead of hanging like decor. Derek walked the elevator banks. The old staff plaques were gone, replaced with new signs reading, "Everyone." Not everything ran smooth. An anonymous report alleged retaliation after a complaint. Kesha didn't flare up. She opened the no retaliation page in the dignity protocol, set up a protection bubble for the reporter, temporary reassignment, legal counsel, weekly check-ins. The manager named in the report was put into a mandatory 8-4-7 class and under 90-day monitoring. "We fix behavior. We don't humiliate people," Kesha said, her voice low but weighted. A short board meeting circled the word transparency. Harrison proposed publishing the dashboard on schedule, with an action log so shareholders and employees could see the work stream. The CFO worried that showing our belly would invite nitpicking. Patricia replied, "No one trusts a chart that only goes up. They trust an up-down-up curve if they know why." James Sr. nodded for the first time, looking tired but speaking clearly. "If we're going to pay for the truth, better early than late." The $50 million fund opened its application round. Pitches no longer leaned on good-sounding buzzwords, but on neat KPI tables. A small garment shop run by two Caribbean sisters proposed a new cut layout to reduce scrap by 11%. A black veteran-owned logistics startup pitched routing algorithm to cut empty miles. A native-owned co-op sought to localize a component cluster to trim lead time by 2 weeks. Kesha listened, hands still carrying the faint smell of bleach from her morning cleaning shift. Her questions were few and direct. If OTEF drops below 98% for 2 straight quarters, penalty. Exceed KPIs, bonus. Cash flow if orders break, we have a plan. Every correct answer was another brick laid in the road. In one dignity dialogue session, Cole stood up. "I said their reasons. I know now how heavy that phrase is. I'm working on it." No applause followed. Instead, the dashboard logged, his team's manager training hours rising fast, anonymous feedback softening. Victoria sat next to Rosa, listening intently to stories about SDS sheets, dilution ratios, and night shift eyes read from chemical fumes. After the session, she didn't ask to speak, only for the schedule to visit the warehouse again. That, "I get it now," was worth more than any speech. Mark Jr. once hesitated his way to Kesha. "I want to do something more than write a check." Kesha took him into Miguel's kitchen. Heat, grease, knife rhythm, delivery cadence. "See this?" Kesha said. "A boardroom decision changes this knife here, this hand here, this meal here, work close." Mark washed lettuce for an entire shift, slicing his finger in a thin line. He gave a strained smile. "First time a scratch taught me what EPS really is." Outside, the short seller crowd sent a few more headwinds. David Kim didn't counter with emotion. He asked for dashboard access to write an analysis. Which columns were measured how each metric was defined, what level of internal audit was applied. The piece ran under a dry but credible headline. From PR to P&L, how a dashboard becomes a bonus penalty engine. Financial commentary stopped using the word stunt and started debating model. WMI's share price didn't spike. It stopped shivering, leveled out for a few sessions, then began to edge upward like a sailboat finding steady wind. An ESG fund disclosed it was adding a small position. No one cheered. The whole company simply went quiet for a beat, like a patient just past a fever who knew they weren't well yet but had cleared the peak. The CFO smiled for one of the few times. At least the market's reading the same language now. By month's end, dashboard V0.2 rolled out. 2 more metrics: complaint resolution time and internal promotion rate by group. The numbers weren't pretty. Some were worse. Kesha didn't delete them. She framed the words, "The good and bad both go on the board," and wrote actions by hand under every red column. Patricia sent a memo. No one is to push the numbers, push the work. That night, the marble penthouse had fewer lights on, the scent of floor cleaner and mahogany blending into something clean and calm. Kesha pushed the scrubber, thinking about tomorrow, Georgia, then back to New York. The scratched steel watch felt cool against her wrist. She stopped, wrote on a sticky note beside the dashboard, "The slope has changed." No exclamation point. Just enough for the next person passing to know they were standing on a plane tilted the right way. End of quarter. Whitman Industries released its first Dignity Report. A minimalist cover, no glossy imagery, just charts, definitions, and commitments written like formulas. On the opening page, one large line read, "Dignity is not a cost. It is the condition for every other calculation to be correct." No author was credited, but anyone in the plants knew whose words they were. The report presented Dashboard V0.3. Workplace accidents. Modest but steady decline in the 2 clusters of plants where interventions had been made. Unchanged where they hadn't. Training hours. Above threshold in middle management. Still low in some back office units. Internal promotion rate. Now extended to frontline staff. A sanitation shift lead sent for safety certification. A young female mechanic promoted to crew leader. Diverse supplier rate. Ticking up with an appendix of Luna, ArborWorks, Redbird KPIs. Employee satisfaction. The line wobbled, but the trend tilted upward. No fireworks in the language. Instead, a 1-page action log. Each task, responsible person, deadline, status. David Kim wrote, "The most adventurous report is the one that doesn't try to look adventurous." Readers shared it not because it was flashy, but because it worked, rare in a sea of pretty press releases. In an internal meeting, Patricia kept it short. "We don't sell a story, we sell results." The CFO followed with a number that wasn't conveniently round. OPEX is on a gentle down path, projected minus 7.x% for the year if the Consortium keeps pace. Some smiled quietly. Kesha only reminded, "Results are a temporary address. The road is home." Victoria completed the 847 program, submitting a personal reflection over 100 pages long. Touch points, once thought harmless. The glance from name tag to skin color. Say that slower when the other has an accent. Come in through that door for protocol. She asked to mentor interns from HBCUs, not for a photo op, but to learn how to ask different questions. She joined Kesha in the warehouse again, flipping through SDS sheets, asking about red eyes, cracked hands, long hours standing. Kesha didn't hand out forgiveness. She handed her a schedule. "Next week, come with me to the parish to visit a women's co-op. They're applying to the $50 million fund. Listen first, promise later." Catherine wandered into a women entrepreneurs gathering at a community center. Small stories broke the Gala season social shell. a single mom piecing together capital for a cutting machine, a hairdresser looking to convert into a natural shampoo workshop, a 21-year-old wrestling with food safety permits. Pearl Initiative, the name came to Catherine as she unconsciously tightened her necklace, took shape as a small fund to provide seed capital plus mentorship to Black women starting out. If this pearl necklace was once a symbol of separation, she told herself, it can also become a promise of connection. Mark Jr. began a series of recordings, neither podcast nor confession, just short conversations with workers. Rosa on the smell of chlorine, Miguel on the cold chain, Derek on the use that door reflex. He didn't post them right away. He waited for dashboard metrics to move, then released each episode tied to a KPI, OTIF rate after listening to Miguel, scrap reduction after a day in the warehouse with Rosa. Viewers said it felt less performative. In truth, it wasn't less. It was that he had learned how to work close. Outside the company, something unexpected happened. A few other WCM portfolio companies asked for the Dignity Protocol to pilot. Harrison jokingly called it the Kesha effect. A janitor trustee turning attitude into standard, turning well-timed righteous anger into durable mechanism. UECM and a circle of allied pension funds began sketching a fledgling network, not yet an alliance in name, just organizations pledging to measure dignity. In a few months, it would have a title. For now, it was a memo and a few quiet Zoom calls. The skeptics didn't vanish. They just quieted when internal audit published the dashboard data verification process, and an independent ratings firm confirmed the Consortium's OTIF numbers. Headlines like Whitman rebounds on OPEC's gains ran alongside Whitman avoids legal minefield with race-neutral criteria. Two puzzle pieces, efficiency and equity, no longer opposed, but meshing like teeth on the same gear. On a damp afternoon in New York, the Dignity Dialogue took on the topic. Touchpoints. People shared small details, emails greeting only senior staff, not the person who compiled the material. Meetings always set during school pickup hours. Review forms using culture fit to exclude unlike personalities. Patricia wrote on the board, culture equals sum of touchpoints. Kesha added, touchpoints equals budget decisions. Heads nodded. It looked like philosophy, but it was really finance. At the end, a young employee asked Kesha shyly, "Do you still clean floors?" Kesha smiled. "Of course. This room isn't clean because I've been in articles. It's clean because I run the machine." She pushed the scrubber across a streak of marble, catching the light. Victoria coiled the cable. Rosa labeled bottles. Derek held the door. A room once used to humiliate had become a classroom, then a cultural test lab. These things might not spike the chart in a day, but they set the slope for it to climb over a year. Late that night, Kesha's phone lit with a text from David Kim. Harvard and Wharton will be using the Dignity Report in their Risk and Shareholder Management course. They want to invite you to speak. She set the phone down, not rushing to reply. There was a stubborn stain on the floor. She'd need to go over it a few more times. In her head, the steel watch ticked, measured not to the crowd's applause but to the rhythm of small, repeated work. She thought, if she did stand in some lecture hall, she would tell the stories of Samir, of Darlene, of Miguel, of Rosa, of Derek. The people who had turned lifeless dashboard numbers into the human heartbeat of a company willing to learn. The Dignity Report closed with an appendix no one expected, a language handbook. There, phrases were struck through, use that door, culture fit used for exclusion, and recommended replacements listed. Most convenient route, clear job criteria. Not because the words were prettier, but because language is the first process to touch a person. Change the language, change the process, and it lasts longer than any promise. Before turning out the lights, Kesha pinned a small note to the staff bulletin board. No one needs a crown to be respected. We need processes and habits, so no one's dignity can be taken away. Then she pulled the door shut, leaving behind the scent of a clean floor and the soft reflection of marble. Somewhere, the stock price was inching upward. Not because of a story told or a whale shouting, "Buy," but because hundreds of small decisions had begun moving in the same direction. And that is the rare sum of ethics and efficiency. When you do right by people, the numbers come out right too. Half a year had passed. Outside, the Whitman Industries sign hadn't changed. Inside, much had been re-engineered. Forklift routes repainted, buried emails pulled to the top, the dashboard no longer a pretty slide, but a living daily work schedule. Columns that had once been thin lines now had shape and rhythm. At the annual shareholders meeting, the big hall was packed. Some had come demanding answers on profit. Others wanted to look the dignity commitments in the eye to see if they were real or just air. Harrison Pierce opened with a single sentence. This year, we discuss two things, efficiency and people, and see how they mesh. The CFO went first. Operating costs down in the -7.x% range, base case EPS thickening with the Consortium holding OTIF. No fireworks, just a string of non-round numbers. The kind the market trusts more than slogans. Dr. Patricia Williams followed with examples that seemed small but made up the backbone. Press number 847 no longer needed 3 pushes. Vibration pads installed on the industrial dryer, so Darlene's hands bruised less. The produce RFP that meant Miguel no longer mourned crushed cabbages. Safety, respect, efficiency, she said, 3 gears. Touch 1, the other 2 turn. A shareholder stood up to challenge. Too much time on culture, not enough on profit. Kesha Walker stepped to the mic, still wearing her old steel watch. Profit is the result, she said. Culture is how you make decisions at the smallest point. A single "use that door" comment creates hidden costs. Morale drops, risk rises, productivity falls. We've just converted hidden cost into a measurable risk governance variable and cut it down. The room quieted. It was the kind of answer people scribbled down, not clapped for. A low thud came when a group of anti-woke shareholders unfurled a banner. Harrison didn't eject them. He invited their questions into the Q&A. In the press row, David Kim gave a thin smile. He knew the real headline would come from somewhere else. It came from Georgia. An ammonia leak had just been detected by a plant's sensor system. Before, they might have tried to run through it to make the shipping deadline. This time, the shift team stopped the line under the new protocol, evacuated, and hit the red button to summon the safety crew. No grandstanding, no hollow heroics. It played out like a drill. Patricia took the call, then calmly stood at the podium. We have an operational incident. Under the dignity protocol, the workers' stop work authority was activated. No injuries. I'll report details later. The room, in that moment, understood that dignity wasn't a poem, but the right to halt the line to protect human beings. Kesha added, when you give workers the right to say, stop, you shrink the odds of the never-happens accident that's happened all through industry history. The Q&A resumed. An analyst asked bluntly, so can you keep your margins while you prioritize people? The CFO pulled up the chart. OPEX -7.x%, EPS +5% in the latest quarter. Not luck. The Consortium held its KPIs, workplace accidents dropped, OTIF stayed steady. A large teacher's pension shareholder stood. We like EPS, but what we like more is seeing tail risk bent. In the middle of the hall, Victoria Whitman sat quietly, her notebook full of touchpoint bullet points. She had completed 847, volunteered to mentor interns from HBCUs, and wasn't angling to reclaim her old seat. After the session, she went to the press corner and greeted David Kim. If you write this, write it slowly. These things, she gestured at the dashboard on the big screen, don't pop in a single column inch. David nodded. He knew. Catherine appeared with a stack of Pearl Initiative files, the small fund she'd founded to provide seed capital plus mentoring to Black women entrepreneurs. Not out of guilt, she said in a side session, but because I've learned, capital is the private sector language of dignity. Without capital, promises are thin. She told of a handmade soap shop buying a new mixer to meet safety standards, of a food store adding shifts thanks to a contract with Miguel's Kitchen. Mark Jr. stayed out of the noise. He worked close, washing produce in the kitchen in the warehouse. He'd begun a series of short recordings, not confessions, but to strip away the empty applause rhythm. Each episode linked to a dashboard KPI. After talking with Rosa, how much did SDS read-through rates in the warehouse increase? After a day with Derek, how many staff-only signs were replaced with everyone? When they aired, viewers said it felt less performative. In truth, it wasn't less. He'd just learned to work close. At the end of the meeting, Harrison called a long-term vote. The Dignity Protocol to become a mandatory corporate standard, audited internally and cross-checked by a third party. Passed. Dr. Patricia closed with, "We're not going to teach culture. We're going to design culture with process and budget." The next day, the market reacted in the least emotional way. It held, then ticked up. An ESG ratings firm revised its outlook, moving from strong statement to mechanism with teeth. David Kim's piece ran, "Stress test, an ammonia leak. Just proved dignity is the right to stop the line." Shares didn't go viral, but boardrooms downloaded the Dignity report at several times the rate of any prior release. That night, lights glowed in the marble penthouse for another Dignity dialogue. No one mentioned the stock price. They talked about Samir and the new sensor latch, about Darlene and the vibration pad, about Miguel and OTIF, about Rosa and chemical labels, about Derek and doors with no more lanes. Kesha stood late, pushing the scrubber across the stone floor. "Tomorrow," she said, "we do the math again, one small calculation at a time." She didn't need a crown. She had a steel watch and a slope that was turning. 1 year later, Whitman Industries released its fourth Dignity report. The columns on the charts weren't flashy, but the trends were clear. Workplace accidents down in stepped drops, OTIF holding above target, OPEX steady in the -8% range, EPS thickening modestly, internal promotions up among frontline staff, employee satisfaction continuing to tilt upward. The appendix listed what used to be considered marginal metrics: complaint resolution time, number of dignity dialogues, number of budget decisions changed because of touch points. In the main lobby, a new poster hung beside the company logo. Dignity is strategy. No signature. People knew where it came from, but also knew it now belonged to everyone. Beyond Whitman, something larger was in motion. W.C. Haim and a group of partner pension funds launched the Corporate Dignity Alliance. 847 companies signed on to measure, report, and audit similar indicators. No glossy certification program, just an implementation handbook, a sample KPI set, an audit framework, and a schedule of cross-learning between companies. People joked it was the Kesha effect. a janitor trustee pushing an idea from the marble floor of a Gala into the ops desks of hundreds of companies. Catherine reported the first year of the Pearl Initiative. Over 200 Black women entrepreneurs had received seed capital plus mentoring, with a 12-month survival rate above the industry average. She'd learned when to stay quiet, when to sign a check, and to show up at small openings where more bolts were tightened than photos taken. Her pearl necklace was no longer a signal of separation, but a keepsake, reminding her of the night that changed this house. Victoria didn't return to an executive chair. She held a different role, long-term learner. She mentored HBCU interns, joined touchpoint sessions in back-office teams, reviewed SDS sheets with Rosa, went to the wholesale market at dawn with Miguel, and helped Derek put everyone signs on elevator doors. Some days she came back with eyes red from chemical fumes, not from hard labor, but from finally understanding how use that door could cut. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She brought a work schedule. Mark Jr. published the Privilege Check Conversation series, each episode tied to a public KPI. No dramatic intro music, just the sound of Miguel's vegetable chopper, Kesha's floor scrubber, the red button during a safety drill. The audience grew. What pleased him more was that the 8 to 4 to 7 training hours bar for the frontline managers he oversaw had passed the threshold, and anonymous feedback noted fewer use that door moments. Dr. Patricia Williams was formally named CEO, without the word interim. At the short announcement, she said, "I never teach culture. I design culture with budget, process, and metrics." Harrison added, "And we keep culture with audits." The CFO quietly pointed to a small line on the report. Voluntary turnover down, retention up. Numbers the finance team understood as future margin. One afternoon, the Georgia plant ran a safety drill. Sirens sounded. Everyone left their stations. The response team suited up. Stop work steps executed as rehearsed. Samir stood next to Darlene, showing a new worker how to check a valve. No applause. None needed. The most valuable elements of a new culture often happen in silence. That evening, chairs were in a circle again at the marble penthouse. The dignity dialogue topic was language, striking out the vague culture fit, adding clear job criteria, dropping hard-working as the default complement for people of color, replacing it with results and safety. Kesha listened more than she spoke. She knew culture lasts when the facilitator talks less. At the end, James Sr. came over without drama. That night, I thought power was the pearl necklace, the main elevator. Turns out, power is knowing to stop before hurting someone. He offered his hand. Kesha shook it. No more words. A formal invitation came from the United Nations. Speak at the Global Compact Forum on Stakeholder Capitalism in Practice. On stage, Kesha told the story of Press 847, the vibration pad, the Consortium's OTIF, the bonus penalty dashboard, and Workers' Stop Work Authority. Nothing about being a heroine. She closed. Power isn't what you use to knock someone down. It's what you use to build something that lasts. The applause lasted a long time. Not for pretty phrasing, but because everyone in the room saw themselves in it. Finance people, ops leaders, union reps, workers. Back home, Kesha stopped by the Pearl Initiative to talk with a group of young entrepreneurs. She listened as they discussed OTIF, scrap rates, SDS, and RFP contracts. "Don't call yourselves minority businesses like it's a period," she said. "Call yourselves suppliers with KPIs." They laughed, familiar with how she turns language from decoration into a tool. On the market, WMI didn't soar. It moved on a healthy track, flat, tick up, Flat, tick up. Some called it not exciting. Harrison replied, "Drama is the enemy of governance." David Kim wrote a long piece. No longer breaking news, but a case study. Whitman, when dignity becomes a variable in the cost function. The article made it into business school syllabi. Students debated better because they had data, not just belief. Late at night, Kesha returned to the marble penthouse, the very place it began. She opened the cabinet, took out the scrubber. Rosa set a box of warm pastries on the table. Long night. Derek held the elevator door. No staff-only sign anymore. Victoria handed Kesha a new pair of chemical-resistant safety goggles. Ordered per the SDS. Miguel left a few extra bundles of vegetables by the door. Kitchen won't use them, don't waste. All these tiny gestures formed one big story. Culture is the sum of touch points when no one is watching. She started the machine. The familiar hum spread over the marble floor. The steel watch still ticked, no shinier than before. It didn't need to be, it had done its job, reminding a woman that time isn't only counting down to an accident or a scandal. It also counts toward dignity dialogues, dashboard numbers, and close-to-the-ground budget decisions. As she scrubbed the last stain, she told herself, "This doesn't have an ending. It has a maintenance cycle. And her job, everyone's job, is to keep this machine, literal and figurative, running smooth." Before turning out the lights, Kesha pinned a small note to the bulletin board. Keep the process, keep the people, keep the promise. Then she stepped out. The main elevator doors opened, reflecting her image into fragments. No crown, just gloves, a steel watch, and a slope already tilted enough for those who come after to step up without slipping. And that was the journey from a gala night full of prejudice to a corporate culture overhaul embedded in every decision and metric. From Kesha's steel watch, every moment was spent turning a giant ship, making dignity from slogan to strategy, from strategy to results. And you, if you were in Kesha's place, how would you choose to face and make change? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to read them. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share with those who need to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next stories of perseverance, wisdom, and human strength.